Baton Rouge nights, tiger stripes and dirt, golden arm, yeah, the kid could work. Golden spike shining, red, white, blue, and golds. Olympic dreams with a heart that never froze. It's Big Ben and Birdland, Camden Yards lights, from the mound to the mic, still calling it right. 100 red heart, LSU pride. Baltimore loves him, yeah, that never dies. 7 years deep, left it all on the hill. Crack a joke in the booth, make the whole place grin. College Hall of Fame, yeah, he punched that in. It's Big Ben and Birdland, laughing his voice. Southern truth every time he makes a call or a choice. From Tigers to O's, man, he lived it all right. Baltimore loves Ben every damn night. Yeah, Birdland knows his name. Yeah, Birdland knows his name.
Birdland, what's going on? We got a very, very special guest tonight in Ben McDonald, which we all know from the microphone. We're ready to dissect some of these moves here, and I'm eager to get your opinion tonight. How you been?
I'm doing good, man. That's the best intro I've heard in a long time. I like that. You spent some time on that. That looks good. But yeah, man, it's been an exciting offseason, obviously, with the Orioles. And man, I obviously it was a sour year last year. We all know that in Birdland, and the expectations were high after making the playoffs in back-to-back years. And there was a lot of expectations, and the payroll went up last year. We went from one of the bottom 5 teams to kind of middle of the pack, and people thought, okay, but the biggest part of it was the injuries, as everybody knows, and I don't think anybody could have sustained the type of injuries and as many injuries as the Orioles had last year. And the start, it's tough. I've been there before. When you get off to a bad start the first couple of months, man, and you're just trying to tread water and trying to get some guys healthy, it kind of snowballed on the Orioles. And honestly, some of the guys that did stay healthy just didn't have good years. It was Murphy's Law, if you will. Anything that could seemed like it did. And that's where the Orioles ended up, man. But that's in the past now. I think it was a big learning curve for a lot of the players, for the front office. And I said this on the air with Kevin Brown last year. I said, one thing we learned this year is this game is very, very fragile. And it is a very fragile game at the big league level. And really at the collegiate level, too. It's a fragile game, And so all that's behind us now. It was a learning experience, I think, for everyone. I think the fans, the broadcasters, the players, the front office, to know how fragile this game is. But now that there's a lot of excitement and the new guys that are coming into Birdland next year. And look, I don't think the Orioles are finished yet. Like I think Mike Elias and the ownership has taken a giant step forward here. And I think there's more to come when you talk about improving this roster.
Oh, for sure. So let's jump right into Shane Baz here. So this trade, obviously, we sent several draft picks over. What are your initial thoughts on it?
Shane Baz, to me, or Baz, I should say, I like him. Like, I saw him pitch last year. I think it was September against the Orioles. It was late in the year. He was coming back. Remember, I think it was 2 years ago he had Tommy John surgery. It's kind of affected him for the last 3 years. He got hurt at the end of 1 year. Then he missed all the next year. Got his feet wet a little bit the following year, ramped up a little bit, and then had a really solid year as far as starts go and innings pitched go last year. But I was diving into the analytical numbers on him, man. Look, the fastball is way above average. It averages 97. He can tick it up higher than that. He's got a nice curveball with some swing and miss in both the fastball. The Orioles are an analytical organization, as you know. And if you look at the analytical data, the way he spins his fastball, the spin rate on his fastball is way above average. And what does that mean to the average fan? That just means that ball kind of stays on plane a little bit longer. It's got some hop to it. In my time, guys would come back to the dugout and say, God, that fastball feels like it's rising, like it's got that hop to it. That's what he has. And we know what that means now with the spin rates. And so the velocity is above average. The spin weight is well above average as well. It's a 4-pitch mix. There seems like the curveball is probably his best secondary pitch, if you will. He's got a changeup as well and a cutter. And I'm sure the Orioles and Drew French, who does a wonderful job, the Oriole pitching coach, along with Mitch Plasmeyer, I think they do a wonderful job in trying to figure out what's your best asset, what you bring to the table, a few things that we can change to even make your stuff work even better. And, I've been in uniform the last 3 or 4 years in spring training, so I get to kind of sit on some meetings and I get to listen to Drew French talk. And man, the way he breaks it down and explains it to pitchers about how their stuff plays, what makes their stuff special, where you can use it best in the zone to have the most success. He kind of breaks it down. Now, there's a fine line for me between you can tell me as a pitcher what kind of stuff I have, where it plays best, but you also got to have the mechanical thoughts to it to be able to tell me and show me how I can get those balls in certain quadrants where my stuff can play the best. And I think that's where Drew French is really good at it. And so I like everything about him. He's a power pitcher. I think he's really starting to scratch the surface. I dove deeper into his numbers like you probably did too. And away from Steinbrenner Field, where the Rays had to play last year, was basically a spring training ballpark. He was really good. The ERA was 3.8 away from George Steinbrenner Field. Now you put him in George Steinbrenner Field there in Tampa, and the ERA was 5.80 over 14 or 15 starts. So he struggled in that ballpark, but that was a bandbox of a ballpark. I think he'll be better with the Orioles. And it was his first full year, in the big leagues last year. And so he knows what it takes to get through 30, 32 starts now. I love his stuff. I think he's going to be a middle of the rotation guy to start, but I also feel like he's a guy at 26 years old that's really starting to grow into who he is. And hopefully he's going to be a top of the rotation piece for the Orioles for the next 3 years. And yes, to answer your question, the Orioles gave up a lot. They gave up a lot. I mean, I loved Caden Bodine. You gave up a compensation pick too. Another first rounder, Forrest, who's I think the Orioles' #1 minor league pitching prospect. They gave him up too. But we know how it is now, man. If you're going to trade for a player that's got club control, especially that's on the uptick and young like this guy is, it's going to cost you a good bit. It cost the Orioles a good bit, but I felt like that's what the Orioles needed to do, man, at this point, because you go out and you get Taylor Ward. Of course, you sign Pete Alonso, so you kind of take care of the offense. I'm not saying it's totally done on the offensive part, but it's pretty well done, I would think. Could be a surprise or two somewhere in there, or maybe a situational type player, a platoon type player, maybe. But now you had to roll that over into the starting pitching, because for me, you don't sign Pete Alonso to a 5-year contract and stop there. Like you're saying, as an ownership group and as a GM, that we're all in. We're all in the American League East this year, and the only other way you go all in is, in my opinion, the Orioles need another starter. So I'm hoping there's news with Ranger Suarez. Framber Valdez is out there. There's some other guys out there, but I do think the Orioles need another top of the rotation piece to really get to where they want to be.
Yeah. Can we talk about, for the average fan that doesn't understand like how stadiums work, like you talked about the bandbox down in Steinbrenner Field, not having that second and third deck, and being in Florida with those jet streams being a flat ground and whatnot, and we all know how the wind howls in Florida. Can you speak to like how big of a difference that is, and then compared to playing in these other stadiums with those decks and stuff?
Yeah, I mean it's totally different. Now, the bad news of that is we know the fences have been brought back in, not all the way in at Oriole Park, but not when I pitched, when it was a real bandbox, but it is still a pretty homer friendly ballpark, and so you still got to keep the ball down, and he does create some ground balls, does Baz. I mean, he can keep the ball on the ground occasionally. um, so but when you get down in Florida, South Florida in the summertime, man, and the weather heats up, it just jumps out there, man. The ball just absolutely jumps. I remember talking to some of the Oriole hitters when they went and played out there a couple of days. They said, man, I'd love to hit that ballpark every day because the ball just bounces out there, And so the proof is in the numbers away from that ballpark and what he did with half of his starts. And I think it was a 3.8 something ERA, which is way above average, from the average starter. So, and again, let's not forget, it was his first year to throw up 30, 31 starts, whatever it was. So I think he's going to be more experienced. He'll be better for that. I think the defense behind him is going to be really good in the infield. I think he's going to have something to prove when he gets to Baltimore. I think he's going to be rejuvenated in some ways to say, hey, this team's got a real shot, man. Yeah. And I think he's going to be ready to go. And you mix him, I tell you, in with Bradish and Rogers and hopefully another piece. Dean Kramer did his thing last year. Tyler Wells could be in that rotation unless they get another piece. And then Tyler could go to the bullpen, because I still feel like the bullpen needs another piece or two in that bullpen right now,
Right.
And so Tyler Wells could be a great swing guy that can give you some spot starts when you need him. He's proven he can be good at that, but he's also proven that he can go to the bullpen and be an effective guy too. They signed Suarez back, and he was a swing man the last couple of years. Obviously, he missed most of the year last year, but he's back as well. And so he could be another piece. And what we learned last year is what we've always said is you can't never have enough pitching. I think the Orioles had 16 different starters last year, man. That is a ton, but that
Yeah.
speaks to the injuries that they had last year. Let's hope it's not anywhere close to that this year. Let's hope the Orioles can get through 162 games with maybe 8 starters. That would be ideal if they could do something like that.
Yeah. Now, like us as fans, we do struggle with times with trading prospects. We get emotionally attached to names and whatnot. How do you think the front office decides when a proven major league bat or arm is worth the risk of these high-ranking prospects?
That's a great question. I think Mike Elias knew, and I think everybody knew that the Orioles needed starting pitching. And, the shocker for me, and I'm not going to say it was a total shock, it was a little bit of a shock giving up Grayson Rodriguez. That was the big blow early where we go, oh, okay. I mean, you get a guy that Taylor Ward, who hit a lot of homers last year. I think he hit 31 or 36 homers, drove in over 100 runs or something like that last year. A guy that could go play the outfield, one of the corner outfield spots. You needed to pick up, and you needed a right-handed bat. We knew that. I mean, this offense last year was very left-handed heavy. Needed some right-handed sticks in there. But I think when you look at the analytical part of it, and Mike was on record saying, I know you heard it too, is that, hey, he involved everybody. He involved not only him, the front office, and Sig and everybody, but he also involved Drew French in looking at Shane Baz and see what he had to offer. And you look at a 26-year-old that had Tommy John, who's just now really starting to come into his own, and said, that's a guy that we can count on for the next 3 years. We feel like he's going to even take another step forward. So I think you kind of break down all those things that you need. You needed starting pitching. You needed club control with some guys. And you look at the stuff, the analytical world, how healthy he was. There were some ups and downs, but he also finished the year strong last year. Go back and look at his last 5 or 6 starts. They were really good. And that says a lot. That's where I like to look at starting pitchers and say, okay, a lot of guys can get off to good starts. But as the dog days of summer start to come and the starts mount up and the innings start to mount up, how is your stuff? Are you performing well at the end of the season? That tells me how hard of a worker you are in some ways, and if your stuff can carry through 162 games or 30 plus starts. And I think he got better. He had a little ups and downs in the middle part of the season, but I also felt like that he finished the year strong. And that's what I like to see from guys like that. So I think there's a lot of variables that go into, hey, if I'm going to give up Caden Bodine and I'm going to give up some first rounders and some real dudes, we want to make sure we're making the best decision that we can make with as much information. And if I know Mike Elias and Sig in the front office, they do their diligence, man. They go through a lot of different check marks. You got to check a lot of boxes with Sig and a lot of boxes with Mike to feel like that this is a move that we need to do. And clearly, look, I trust Mike. And obviously last year wasn't a great year, but I look at the totality since he's been the GM and now president of the Orioles. I think he's done a lot of things right. And of course, we all wish as fans. When I take my regular cap off, my broadcasting cap, and I put my fan cap on, I'm going, why didn't we do this last year, right? Why didn't we spend more money, But I get it, man. I mean, look, ownership has to agree to it. The Orioles are a middle to small market team. The fans didn't show up as much as they wanted them to show up last year. Viewership was down a little bit. Fan support was down. And I think that's because obviously the team got off to a rough start. If it would have been swapped around and the team would have got off to a good start and then faded down the stretch, it would have been different. But when you get off to a bad start, it just kind of takes the air out of, especially with the expectations being what they were last year. And so, yeah, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it because this is what you need. And I feel like this is the window to win now for the Orioles. I really look at it and I look at Adley's got 2 more years, man. Gunner's got 3 more years. He is the free agent market. We hope they sign them both back, but who knows what's going to happen. And look, I don't know if anybody can afford, when you're talking about Gunnar Henderson, you're talking about Adley Rutschman, talking about Jordan Westberg, talking about Jackson Holiday. I don't know if there's any organizations that can afford all those guys in one. I hope that they can, We want to see them all stay for many, many years. I hope they get to play together for 10 years, but that's not the reality of the world of baseball that we live in now. And so I think Mike and them did the right thing. Hate to see Grayson go. I love Grayson. I think he's got a big upside. Obviously, his health. And we've always said one thing about Grayson. The only thing he's lacking is to be able to go out there and stay healthy and make 30 starts a year. He just hasn't been able to do that yet. And because I like Grayson, I hope he goes over to the Angels this year, and I hope he gets his feet wet and they take care of him this year. And then maybe next year, and I see why Mike did that. You're getting a guy in Baz who you can get or expect to get 30 plus starts out of this year. Whereas if you had Grayson in the rotation, you couldn't count on him. There's no way you could have got 30 starts out of him because you got to take care of his arm coming back from Tommy John surgery because Grayson hadn't pitched in a year and a half. This kid has pitched last year. And so you get a guy ready to make 30 starts for you is what I'm saying. And you couldn't have counted on that with Grayson.
Yep. All right, we'll move on to the next one here. Ryan Helsley. Give me your thoughts on this one, especially with the big man going down.
Yeah, I mean, hard thrower. We know about the fastball. We saw him over in St. Louis, and velo ticked up over 100. Big arm fastball averages 99 point something. Really swing and miss breaking ball, man. And what I like about him is he's got the experience, right? Led the National League in saves one year. He's been in the fire. He knows what it's like to be at the back end of a bullpen and having to get those final 3 outs, which can be the most difficult outs to get in a ball game. I like the stuff. Yes, he struggled at times last year. We know when he went to the Mets last year, it wasn't good. But if you take, again, you look at his career and what he's done as a whole, he's a real dude at the back end. Mike knew that Bautista was going to be out. We hope that Felix comes back maybe in September. Maybe you get him back, but you can't count on that. So you got to have a guy at the back end of the bullpen. You got to have one. And you go get him. I like the fact they went and got Kittredge again. And they put Kittredge back in the fold. He's going to be a great setup guy. And Helsley's going to be the guy at the back end back there. That's how it goes. And look, he'll have something to prove as well because he's used to having a lot of success. And then last year, he had some bumps in the road last year, a little ups and downs. Rumor was he was tipping his pitches a little bit. From what I heard, that's exactly what he was doing. That's what got the ERA up and the blown saves in some ways. He's got that fixed now. Drew French will make sure that he's not tipping any pitches. And so I think it gives you a real dude at the back end of your bullpen. And so as I start to look at what Mike Elias has done, a lot of things that he talked about, he's checked a lot of the boxes that he wanted to check so far.
So a couple questions on him, though. What separates an elite closer like Ryan Helsley just from a regular late inning reliever?
I think it's several things. Stuff is what separates guys. Like most closers are swing and miss guys, and most back into the bullpen guys are swing and miss guys that you bring in. And the reason why we say swing and miss is most of those guys are coming in to set up guys in the closer with traffic, right? With runners on base, and you can't afford to have a lot of contact. And so you want guys that have swing and miss stuff. And I thought you talk about Kittredge with that slider and that sinking fastball of his. You talk about Helsley and his breaking ball and his high velocity fastball. It's swing and miss stuff. Also, I think it's a mindset of a closer to be able to slow the game down in a lot of ways. There's 40,000 people. You got to get the toughest 3 outs with a 1-run lead, or you come in with a runner at second base and 1 out. You can't afford even to give up a base hit or the game's tied and you've blown a save. And so I think it's a mindset of being able to be mentally tough, to be able to flush all the noise that's going on around you and focus on the job at hand. But I also think it's a short memory too with closers to know, and I think Helsley's one of these guys from what I understand that can have a bad outing and blow a save and be able to flush it because he knows 24 hours later he may have to go back out there and do it all over again. And so you got to have a short-term memory if you're a closer. If you had a great night, that's great. If you had a bad night, you try to flush it, you learn from it, you get rid of it, and you take the ball 24 hours later and you go out there and you try to get a save again. And from what I understand, that is Helsley and how he brings himself to the table every day. It's elite stuff with experience. He knows the job. He's comfortable in that job. He likes those situations, and he's able to flush the bad moments, which is very important.
Nice. So I'm a little bit younger, so I didn't really get to see a whole lot of your years in Baltimore. But you as a good starting pitcher, what was it like if you had a dominant closer? I don't know if you ever did or not. I probably should have looked that up. But as a starter,
I had Greg Olson. Greg Olson
right.
was back there,
right,
and I had Lee Smith, the Hall of Famer, came along in 93, 94, 95 when I was there. And so, man, it's great to know that when you leave a ball game in the 6th or the 7th or the 8th inning and you got a 1-run lead, that you got some dudes back there that can hold it down. It gives you all the confidence in the world because, I played on teams too that didn't have great closers in Milwaukee, and I didn't want to come out of a ball game because I didn't want to take a chance. I'm like, I'm not. It's the 7th inning, and I'm up by 1. That guy you're fixing to bring in behind me to get this out, he's not better than I am right now after 125 pitches. Like, I want to stay in the ball game because that's my game out there. That's my runner out at second base. And so it's nice to know as a starting pitcher that I got a good bullpen behind me because I know, look, my job, and I hope it starts to kind of wheel back to my time where guys are extending themselves a little bit more. I hope we kind of get back to that because, as you know, the average American League pitcher or average starting pitcher last year in baseball went like 5 1/3. That's all they're going now. They're getting 15, 16 outs and they're out of the ball game. I hope we start to get back to where our starting pitchers are giving us, 18 outs. Sometime they're getting into the 7th, getting into the 8th inning, and then it shortens the game because if you think about it, man, I started, we talked about this when it was me and Mike Messina and Rick Sutcliffe, and we were in that rotation years ago. I mean, Mike Messina averaged nearly 7 innings per start. I averaged 6 2/3 per start. Sutcliffe was given 6 1/3 per start over the course of 35 starts. Well, if you do the math, I mean, that only gives the bullpen 7 or 8 outs to get. They got to come in and get 7 or 8 outs. That's all they got to do. When you come out after 5 innings, dude, now they got to get 12 outs, and it's a whole different ball game then. And so I hope we start to extend our pitchers in a ways where we keep the pitch count down. And I think our pitchers are starting to understand across Major League Baseball. I'm starting to see a trend where as starting pitchers, we don't have to strike out everybody. Yes, there is a time when I get a runner at third base and there's less than 2 out. Yes, I got to go. Or there's a time running the 5th inning out at second base and I got to be max effort and I got to get out of this jam. But we used to pitch at 90% max effort and just cruise along. And when we needed to turn it up, we would turn it up. But that allowed us to throw 120, 125, 140 pitches in a ball game and wouldn't think anything of it to do it. And especially in a time now where I feel like we're getting, in a lot of cases, extra rest with off days. In my time with off days, we would skip the 5th starter every time, and we keep all the 4 guys on a 5-man rotation all the time. You pitch every 5th day, no matter what. You hardly ever got an extra day's rest. And so now, especially with the off days and really not skipping guys anymore, guys are getting 5 days rest now, 6 days rest. And I think that's okay. That's okay for me to extend you. If you're having success, I'm okay with you throwing 120, 125 pitches if you get an extra day's rest. I'm okay with that, And so I know Dean Kramer's on record saying he wants to throw 200 innings, and I think and the only way you do that is you got to almost average. And I did it 3 times in my career, but you got to almost average 7 innings per start if you're going to get to 200 innings. That's just the bottom line, But man, that is a help for a bullpen because we've seen this before where when your starters aren't giving you length throughout the year, you start to work your bullpen a lot. And when it really matters down the stretch and you get into postseason, you start to wonder if your bullpen's running on fumes a little bit. The more you can save those back end guys and you can give a little more length, the more valuable your bullpen will be and more effective they will be down the stretch.
So how do teams gauge when they look at a pitcher nowadays? I mean, obviously, like for a long time, ERA was like the thing to look at. Now all these new algorithms coming out. But like you said, guys aren't going long, so their ERAs are inflated. I think only 30 pitchers last year had below a 4 ERA last year. So
which is surprising when you're not even getting into the 6th and the 7th inning, right? I mean, that's when you're your strongest 1 through 4, 1 through 5, right? And then so it's surprising to me in some ways that guys ERAs aren't a little bit better if they're only going 5 innings. I mean, if you would say, okay, you're only going 5 innings, then I felt like my ERA would have been a lot better than what it was. Because as you start to tire a little bit, your ERA can go up a little bit. And that's why this started many years ago with the 3rd time through the lineup. It became a thing where the 3rd time through the lineup, we got to get them out because the 3rd time through the lineup, the ERA goes way up, the hits go way up. But I also think it's a mindset too. And I had this conversation with Drew French last year. I said, if I was the pitching coach, my expectation of you would be No, I'm not taking you out the third time through. I expect you to get through the third time. And it's a mindset. The more you hear it as a pitcher or a player, it's kind of like when you tell a left-handed hitter, like they told Ryan O'Hearn for years when he was at Kansas City and even with the Orioles in some cases, well, you can't hit left-handed pitching. We're going to take you out. You can't hit it. Well, he showed last year when he got an opportunity with the Orioles because of injuries and he got an opportunity with the Padres, he started to hit left-handed hitting. But if you hear something and somebody continued tells you, well, you can't get guys out the third time through the lineup. All of a sudden, I start to believe that. So I would almost change the mindset to say, I expect you to. Yeah, you're going to hit left-handed pitching this year if you're left-handed. Gunnar Henderson, you're going to hit left-handed pitching this year. Hey, Dean Kramer, you and Bob, y'all, I expect y'all to get through the third time through the lineup. That is the goal every time, is to get me through the lineup 3 times. And so I think we should start changing the mindset to have players start to believe positive things that you can. Now, I know what the analytics, I know what the numbers say. The numbers say the third time through the ERA balloons in most cases. But I think it's a visual thing you look at as a pitching coach and a manager to know when to take somebody out. Obviously, velocity can be one thing, but for me, more than velocity, it can be command of your stuff. Because I never really lost velocity when I got tired, but I would lose command of the strike zone and start leaving balls elevated a little bit when I didn't want to. And that's a telltale sign of maybe getting a little bit tired. But here's the other piece of that too. The other piece of that is if your offense is good enough and your offense is putting runs on the scoreboard, I got, as a manager and a pitching coach, I got a little more leadway with my starting pitcher getting the third time through the line. In other words, if it's 5-1, I'm okay to get you through the third. You may give up 2 runs the third time through the lineup, but it's still 5-3 because we've scored some runs. And now I got you through 6 innings, and now I can bring in the bullpen for these final 9 outs. And so it's important that the offense is solid all year long and the offense scores runs, because that allows the manager to, okay, let me see what Dean Kramer can do the third time through the lineup against the Yankees. Let me see what Trevor Rogers can do the third time through the lineup. And so when the offense is good, it takes care of a lot of problems, believe me.
Yeah. All right, well, let's keep on moving then. I actually wanted to talk about old Drew here. And what do you think that he does best when some of these guys are coming here? I mean, we saw it with like Dietrich Enns when he came in, Enrico Garcia. Like, Drew's able to get these guys quickly and getting them, acclimated and effective and comfortable in this bullpen. What about him makes that possible?
I think Drew is first of all, he's a great communicator and he communicates well. And as a former player, I want the communication lines to be open with the manager, the pitching coach, the bullpen coach, everybody. If I'm a position player, same thing on the hitting coach's side, And if I'm a pitcher, I want the communication. So I think he makes pitchers feel comfortable. I think he really does his homework and he understands the strengths of pitchers before they even put an Oriole uniform on. He understands what they do best. But I also think he looks at it and he breaks down the film and says, he does this really well, but I want to improve on this right here, this particular thing. I think he can spin his breaking ball. I think he can use his breaking ball a little bit more to have more success. I think he can use his changeup. I think if we tweak the grip of the changeup, I think he'll get a little more action that he wants to get on. So he really dives deep into the analytical side of things, but he's also very good mechanically too on telling you how to get those balls in certain spots where you will have the most success. He's a very energetic guy. Really understands the hitters, really understands mechanics and the analytical world. And I think that's what kind of makes Drew special. And that's what when I look at a pitching coach today, I need somebody that can do both. You got to be able to tell me mechanically what I'm doing wrong. When I'm coming to the mound, I've thrown 5 straight balls and you come out to the mound. I need you to be able to tell me, Ben, your front side is flying open a little bit. I need you to leave your front side closed a tick longer and get that ball where it needs to be. I want you to be able to recognize something. Now, as a pitcher, I hope I get to the point in my career that I start to feel those things mechanically and I already know what I'm doing wrong and I know how to fix it. But it's nice to have the pitching coach come out and you say, hey, I think I'm flying my front shoulder. He goes, that's what I'm seeing. You're flying your front shoulder. Keep that front shoulder tucked a little bit more. Let's go get them, And so Drew's really good at recognizing mechanical things with the pitchers too, but he also is outstanding in recognizing what they do best and focusing on what a pitcher does best to have success.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. So my next question on him was, and if you're not allowed to answer this or have to talk around, I understand. What do you think the core pitching philosophy is that they try to establish across the entire organization?
I think the big thing from Drew is free passes. He don't want any free pay. There's a time that you're going to pitch around guys. I mean, that's just part of it. Certain guys come to the plate that are the other teams. It's still true. The game is still true today in most cases, like it was since the exception of baseball when it began. Was you never let the other team's best player beat you, right? And you get in those situations, and first base is open and it's 2 out. And in my time, I'm facing Ken Griffey Jr. I'm not pitching to Ken Griffey Jr., right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's either we're putting a 4 up or we're just going to sit off the outside corner. If he wants to swing at some balls off the plate and make out, then we'll let him do that. But we're not going to let him beat us in those situations. I think the game is still the same in a lot of situations. I don't feel like there's quite as many intentional walks as there was years ago. But I think the game is still the same in a lot of ways when you talk about that. So the game has changed, I guess, in a lot of ways, but it's crazy to say the more it changed. We've heard this before. I think in a lot of ways, the more it stayed the same in some
Yeah.
ways, And I think when you talk about Drew and his philosophy, it's always when I hear him talk, it's attack
Mhm.
the strike zone. I'm okay. And I said this about 6 years ago on TV, and somebody looked at me like I was crazy, but I felt like 2 pop-ups and a ground ball became a bad inning for a pitcher somehow. And I went like, why is that a bad inning? I feel like now it feels like we got to strike out 2, we got to walk 2, we got to give a base hit, we got to throw 27 pitches and we get 3 outs and we're off the field. Whereas
Right.
if I go throw 7 pitches, dude, and I can get 2 ground balls and a pop-up, that's where I want to be. And that way, that allows me to work deeper in the ball games. It keeps my pitch count down. But we got to get away from this Dylan Cease mentality. And I love Dylan Cease. He's got some of the best stuff in the game. But if you look at Dylan Cease, dude, it's like he going to strike out 200 every year and he going to walk 80 every year. That's just what he does. It's like max effort, wide open every time he wants to strike everybody out. And there isn't a time that we need that. We got to strike guys out. But there's also a time where, hey, 2 ground balls and a pop up, that's a hell of an inning, man. I'll shake your hand. Come on off the field. That's 7 pitches. Hey, you're going to work into the 7th inning for us tonight, And so, but that's Drew's philosophy from what I hear is pound the strike zone, put hitters on defense right away. I want you to fill it up. And if you can create early contact, I am good with that. And let's eliminate as many free passes as we can. And I think that's kind of where Drew is.
Nice. You just brought something up and it blew a light bulb off my mind here. Speaking of Dylan Cease and how he stays healthy, do you think his arm angle, kind of coming up to the ear like a catcher, has anything to do with it? Because he's almost one of the only guys in baseball that does that, and he seems to just be an Iron Man. No, I don't want to say an Iron Man, but he's probably one of the more healthier pitchers in the game.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because that's where they're trying to get a lot of guys. Now, we had that Jim Palmer, who I love to death, and everybody knows Jim, and Jim had that big rock, and he leaned way back and all that stuff. Then we were even longer in my time, but now the arm stroke has shortened up. They're trying to get guys to a shorter arm stroke. I'll give you Paul Skeens.
Mm-hmm.
I saw Paul Skeens at LSU, and Paul gets the ball up real quick right behind his ear, and it almost throws it like a catcher throws, like we used to teach catch. Well, guess what? Paul Skeens came up at Air Force as a catcher, and he was closing too. So he grew up catching a lot. Now he pitched too, but he caught a lot, and so he learned to get the ball quickly up to his ear and throw the ball. That's how he pitches. He has stayed healthy so far. Dylan Cease has stayed healthy too. Is there something to that? Maybe so, but I know over time, hanging around the big leagues and watching for the last 15 years, is that pitching coaches have tried to shorten the arm stroke of a lot of pitchers now. Not so much for health issues, I don't think, but to make the mechanics a little bit more consistent, where the arm and the body syncs up together when it needs to. They feel like if you can shorten the stroke a little bit, you can sync your body up and be a little bit more consistent, because that's what hitting is and that's what pitching is, right? You know this. I mean, you played too. Can you duplicate the mechanics? Can you repeat the mechanics enough to be consistent? And that's what it's about, is being able to duplicate and repeat. That will allow you to be as consistent as you can. So yeah, Dylan Cease, man, look, he's a horse. I mean, look, would have loved to have him too. He's a guy that was on the Orioles radar too. And of course, the Blue Jays jumped all over him early for a huge contract. But look, he's answered the bell. I mean, it's 30 plus starts. It's 200, 200 strikeouts every year. I think 5 years in a row now, he struck out 200 or more. 5 years in a row, he's 30 or more starts. And so he's a valuable commodity because he takes the ball and he's got some elite stuff to go with it.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move on to everybody's favorite topic in Birdland right now, the old polar bear. And give me your initial reactions when you saw or you heard about this signing.
Super excited, man. I was lucky enough to see and cover Pete in Florida when he played for the Gators. I was working for the SEC Network, still do, and so I saw Pete play a lot over at first base, and it was offense over defense, even in college with Pete. He could really bang it, man. The ball came off the bat. When I think of Pete Alonso, man, I think of a lot of different things. I think of a guy that's played in a large market, that's dealt with a lot, that can handle the pressure, who performs well. I mean, I think the least amount of homers he's ever hit in a season is 36. I think he's averaged 41 homers a year. I think he's averaged 113 RBIs each of his full seasons, not counting the COVID year, but all of his full seasons since 19. You go back and add them up. I think it's 41 homers, it's 113 RBIs. A guy that performs in a big market, and a guy that answers the bell, man. I mean, I think he's not missed a game the last 2 years. He plays like 155 games or more every year. So he's durable. He loves to play. He loves to compete. And he brings a big offensive side. I mean, when you talk about adding Taylor Ward and Pete Alonso, I think you're adding 74 homers from last year and like 230 RBIs is what you're getting from Taylor Ward and Pete Alonso, what they put up last year. And here's the other piece of that, too. We've been talking about this a lot. The Orioles needed a veteran guy that's been around, that's performed well, that's been in the playoffs, that's performed well in the playoffs, a guy that's been around the block once or twice and experienced a lot of different things. That's Pete Alonso.
Yeah.
And he's going to bring a leadership quality to this clubhouse that maybe they haven't had in the past. I think it's only a matter of time for Rutch and Gunnar Henderson and Westy and all those guys. They got them in them. It's in them to be leaders too, and they will be one day. There's no doubt in my mind. But to have a guy that's an established leader, that was a leader in the clubhouse in New York, that's seen a lot over there, obviously what they've dealt with the last few years. But they've also been in the playoffs, and he's performed well there. It brings that. It brings what I call an aircraft carrier to the lineup. It brings a guy that everybody's going to fear. It's going to bring protection for Gunnar Henderson, obviously. And, Gunnar was in a spot last year where, he got off to a little bit of a rough start, and he was on the IL early and tried to play catch up. Things snowballed. And everybody says, oh, he had such a bad year compared. Well, he still set a career high in stolen bases and doubles last year, even what they called a off year,
Right.
And so, so it wasn't like it was a horrible year for Gunnar. It just wasn't quite as good as what the year before. But Gunnar got pitched tough last year, and you knew he would after the year that he had the year before, all the homers he hit and what he did. And so they brought in the best lefties to face him. It felt like in every situation that really mattered, he was going to see a left-hander. Well, it's going to make teams think a little bit differently about that now, because you bring in a lefty, and Pete's probably going to be hitting right behind him. And I know some people are saying, well, Pete doesn't exactly cover lefties great either. His career batting average off left-handers, it may be not as good is what you think it would be, but the home runs are there, and so it's going to make teams and managers think twice about bringing that lefty in every time to face Gunnar, and I expect Gunnar's going to have a big year this year.
Well, not only that, you also have Gunnar that can now run. I mean, proving it with 30 stolen bases. Now you have that threat and now you got to throw a fastball, because now you can't fart around or Gunnar's going to take off, and then the duck fart and all of a sudden it's an RBI. So those little things are going to add up. And even if you get past Alonso, well, you still got to deal with Taylor Ward. So it definitely elevates his offense. Moving on to that, what are some of the signs that tells you a clubhouse is built to handle the postseason pressure?
I think experience. I think experience matters. I think this young core, and people's been asking me a lot, oh, we got Taylor Ward, Alonso, and Shane Baz, and Kittredge, and Helsley. But for me, the key to the Orioles' success in 2026 is what I call the five. The five have to take a step forward. What I mean by the five, I mean Adley Rutschman, I mean Jordan Westberg, I mean Gunnar Henderson, I mean Colton Cowser, and of course Jackson Holliday. That's the five. The five, the core, have to take a step forward this year, And yeah, look, I know Jackson's young, and he's 21 years old, be 22 this year, right? I know Westy was banged up last year. Gunner's going to be fine, but Colton Cowser didn't have quite the year he wanted to have. He had his rookie year when he finished second in rookie of the year voting, but to me, I'm not worried about the proven guys. I think Halsey's going to do his thing. I think Kittredge is going to do his thing. I'm not worried about Kittredge. I'm not worried about Alonso and Ward. I think they're going to do their thing too. The question is, can the five elevate their game? And I certainly think that they can. I mean, I love that group, man. I tell you, they're gamers, they're go-getters. They needed some leadership as a young group. They're going to have that leadership now, but I mean, Jordan Westberg, dude, he's just a gritty gamer kind of dude. I'm telling you right now, and I always say this, you probably heard on the air. If Jordan Westberg can play 145 games and get 525 at bats, he's a 30 homer guy to me all day long. There's no doubt in my mind. And he's going to play third base. He's going to play second base. He can play wherever you want him to play. I think Gunnar is one of the top 7 or 8 players in the game of baseball. I believe that. I think he's multi-talented. What he did defensively last year got so overlooked because the Orioles had a bad year. But to me, he was the best defending shortstop in Major League Baseball last year. You take away the month of April when he came back, he wasn't quite ready to be back. They were in a hurry to get him back. He didn't get the reps on ground balls or at bats in spring training after being hurt. But you go back and look at his defensive metrics and his numbers from May all the way to the end of the year. There was nobody better than Gunnar at the shortstop position. The arm is elite, his movement, how big he is. And Jackson Holiday just continues to grow, in my opinion. And such a valuable year for what he had last year. A lot of ups and downs in there, but I keep reminding myself the kid's 21 years old. He was 21 last year when he played a full season. He was the only position player I think that didn't go in the IL last year. He answered the bell every time. I think he's going to have a nice year this year. I really believe that. But the real key to me is part of the five is Adley Rutschman. And the Orioles need Rutsch to get back to being Rutsch again. And, it's been a rough 18 months for Adley. I know the struggles in 24, the second half of the season, the struggles last year. If Rutsch can get back to being the guy that he was the previous 18 months when he was a 2-time All-Star and getting on base a lot, not expanding the zone, this team's going to go places this year. I think Rutsch is really the key to this whole thing. Basayo's going to play a role in this too, and there's a lot of upside there. We know that, but we got to remember, we're talking about another 21, 22-year-old that doesn't have a lot of experience. He's going to blow it out of the ballpark every now and then, but there's going to be some swing and miss there, but he will continue to get better too. He'll be an X factor in there as well. But I think, and I don't want to put any pressure on Rutsch, but Rutsch knows this. Like, he's got to get his game back to where it was a couple of years ago. And if he gets his game back to where it was a couple of years ago, I think the sky's the limit for the Orioles.
I want to touch one little thing with Holiday here because I want to get your opinion. So I actually tweeted this out the other day. It said Jackson Holiday had 17 home runs last year. He's one of 65 players in the majors who've played 100-plus games with 15 home runs or more, age 21 or younger, since 1969. He actually had more home runs than Gary Carter, Barry Bonds, Vladdy, Rougned Odor, Darrell Porter, and Sammy Sosa. Give me your expectations for 2026.
Wow. Yeah. Well, yeah, he had 17 last year. If he stays healthy and plays as many games, I think it's 25 this year. I really think he can be that. Now, what he has to learn, and I think that he will, and of course his dad was a fabulous ball player, and I know his dad, he loves his dad knows his swing better than anybody, and his dad really works hard with him. And Ethan's going to be a star too. His younger brother's going to be he's a stud too. Like, he's going to be a star, and it's fun to watch those guys talk and listen to them talk hitting, But Jackson, I think, is starting to understand that when he doesn't try to hit homers, he hits them. When he starts to hit a few, I always worry about young guys when they start to get on a hot streak and they blow a few out of the ballpark real quickly, hit 2 or 3 in 4 or 5 days, then they start trying to hit home runs. And I felt like that's what Jackson did at times last year. It's a learning process for a 21-year-old. You learn as you go through this. And I felt like Jackson's swing got a little bit longer at times last year because when he struck the year before, that swing got long. It got really long, and they beat him with fastballs, especially elevated fastballs. They beat him. When he shortened his stroke this past year, he put up good numbers. He had really quality at bats. He used the backside of the field. He could hit line drives to left field, left center field. That's when Jackson was at his best. Then when he tried to get out in front and really do damage, the swing got a little bit long. He got out in front of balls sometimes. He was out in front of the off-speed pitches a little bit. So it's a learning process that you go through. And look, it's hard to do, man. You know this. I mean, over a 6-month period, it is hard to stay mechanically sound and there's going to be ups and downs. There's not many guys that are mechanically sound from start to finish. It just doesn't work that way. It doesn't work as a pitcher that way. It does not work as a hitter that way. But I think Jackson's learning curve and the fact that he hung around big league ballparks, what I love about the kid is he's not in awe of anything. Like his heartbeat is a slow heartbeat, and that's unusual for kids that are 20 and 21 years old. But the fact that he grew up in big league clubhouses, he grew up around some of the best players in the world. I think that's allowed him to relax a little bit in some ways, but I think he'll be even more relaxed this year. The fact that he played a full year last year, he got some very valuable at bats. I felt like he got better defensively too. We talked about the forehand side. He was really good going to his glove side. And then at times on the backhand side, he had some struggles on some balls that maybe he should have made it in. But I felt like as the season went on, he got better on the backhand ball, the ball going towards second base from the second base position. I felt like him and Gunnar turned some really good double plays. I think they're only going to get better doing that too. And I think this infield defense, man, I think it's going to be really good. I mean, with Westy at third and Henderson and Holiday, and Alonso, I know the metrics don't favor him a little bit, but what he does do well over at first base, he picks the ball out of the dirt really good. Like he can really pick it out. That's one of his strengths over there too, And so it's not like he's a bad first baseman, but he's not what I would call an elite defender over at first base. But he'll be fine over there, trust me. And he plays by the old adage that's been around a long time. If you drive in more than you let in, there's a place for you somewhere. And Pete's going to drive in a lot more than he lets in, trust me.
Yeah. Now, how important is having a guy like Miguel Cairo for this infield with his experience playing, coaching? Compared. I mean, I'm saying that Mansolino didn't have that kind of experience, but like to have a guy that played that long in the big leagues to give his turn, like how much different is that going to be?
Yeah, look, I'll put Tony up against anybody when it comes to teaching the fundamentals of the game because as a pitcher, I'm still learning this game in a lot of ways and what's new. And I always go out early and I watch him take and I listen. I stand on the field and I listen to Tony talk about it. But Tony will be the first one to tell you that, he just didn't have the talent to make it at the big league level. I think it means more to players, and maybe it should and it shouldn't. But when you got a guy that's a 14-year veteran that played 14 years or 15 years in the big leagues like Cairo did, I think it means more when you start to listen to a guy like that. Not that they didn't respect Tony, because of course the players respected Tony. Tony was very good at what he did. He was a grinder kind of dude. But when you talk about a guy, you talk to a guy that played 14 or 15 years, I think your ears perk up a little bit because you go, hey, dude, this dude stuck around the big leagues for 14 years.
Right.
He must know some stuff. Like to play that long, this dude had to be really good at what he did. I think I'm gonna make sure and not that they didn't listen to Tony, because of course they did, but I think sometimes hearing a new voice in some ways, whether it's a new hitting coach, a new infield coach, a new outfield coach, a new pitching coach, sometimes you hear something a little bit different as a ball player, and it lights up the light bulb in your skull, and you go, gosh, that's what they've been talking about. Yeah, I love the way he said that. That makes sense to me. And so to hear a different voice sometimes makes a difference. And so I think Cairo is going to do great with this bunch. I think they're going to be eager to listen to him. And what I keep hearing from Craig is we're going to be fundamentally sound. I've heard that a bunch from him. We're going back to the fundamentals. And I like to hear that. And I loved Hyder. I did. I think Brendan Hyde did a good job. But one nitpick thing I had about Hyder was, and being in spring training and watching, I felt like the Orioles were in and out a little bit too fast in spring training. Like they worked, but they did not work like as long and as much as I wanted to. And I know we're in a time now with analytics and we can't tire them out. They can't be on their feet for this long. But I go back to 30 years ago in my time, and when I watched spring training last year, we were literally be on the field for 4 hours at a time. Cal Ripken Jr. took infield every day. He took batting practice every day. We were out there for 4 hours every day.
Yeah.
And we didn't get hurt as much. We played 162 games. We answered the bell every time, too. We were prepared when the season began. And when I listen to Craig talk, it almost sounds like, okay, things are going to be a little bit different. We're going to do it this way. We're going to really focus on the fundamentals. We're not going to kill them in spring training, but we're going to make sure we are ready to go when spring training is over and the season begins. We're going to have our work in. We're going to feel comfortable about what we're doing. And obviously, the main goal in spring training is get everybody out of there healthy. Like, that's the main thing, right? And
Yeah.
I hope that the baseball gods shine on the Orioles this year. It was such a tough year last year with the injuries. And if this Oriole team can stay healthy, man, or mostly healthy, nobody stays totally healthy anymore. But if you can stay mostly healthy, this team's got a real shot. I really believe that.
Yeah. Now I want to dig into your LSU connections a little bit, and a lot of the viewers don't really know a ton about our minor league guys, but your LSU connection here. Tell me a little bit about Blake Money.
Blake Easy Money. That's him. Big guy. He was at LSU. And of course, I covered him at LSU. He actually began his LSU career as the Friday night guy at LSU and did well. And then about halfway through his first year there, something changed with the stuff. He got hit a little bit and got kind of put in the bullpen. Wasn't an extremely high pick. I think there you got on the screen right there. He's a 12th rounder. Yes. But when you talk about arm strength, you talk about size at 6'6", you love the body and what he's done. And the Orioles, the pitching the pitching gurus with the Orioles in this organization has changed Blake in some ways, because when I watched him highlights of him in the minor leagues, he's doing a few things differently than what he did at LSU. It looks like the fastball he's figured out at the top of the zone. I think his command is a little bit better. They sharpen up the breaking balls a little bit. And I think he's kind of growing into that body that he's got, And I think Blake's got a chance. I really do. I think Blake's got a chance to pitch in the big leagues one day. I don't know if it's going to be as a starter or it could be as a reliever, but I think he's got a chance to get to the big leagues. But I know he's a kid that cares. He tries really hard. He worked really hard at LSU. I know he's working really hard in the minor league system with the Orioles. And so, look, pitching is a key to this game. It's always been the most important thing, and you can't have enough of them. So I think, Blake's got a real shot. I really believe that.
Yeah. Let's talk about. Oh, I didn't mean to. I got to throw you back in there. My bad. What do you think the Orioles do well right now in development to getting their young hitters and pitchers to the level that they've been at?
Well, we're going to have some different hitting coaches this year, as opposed to last year. And I think one thing what the Orioles really do well as a whole is they are really good at breaking down the analytical world of the game of baseball. And I've sat in on a couple of hitters meetings when they talk about the pitcher they're going to face that night, what that pitcher does well. There's a lot of information that's out there now. And there's, how it is. Everybody's a little bit different. Some hitters want very little information. Some hitters want all the information you can give them. Some, just like with some pitchers want to know just a little bit about every hitter. Some pitchers want to know everything about the hitters they're going to face at night. So but they got the information and the data if you want it. And look, there's no secrets in this game anymore. You know that. I mean, look, they can tell you he's going on a 1-0 count, he's going to throw his cutter 67% of the time. On a 0-1 count, he's going to throw a slider 72% of the time. They got it's broken down like that. So kind of what pitchers are going to do and how they're going to attack you as a hitter. I've sat in on those meetings and listened. And so they have a lot of information that's very valuable to them on what pitchers' tendencies are and what they like to do. The one thing I think the Orioles have to do better this year as a whole offensively is stay in the zone and attack balls in the zone. It's like I said, the more this game changes, the more it stays the same. I never played with a guy that was very successful at chasing balls off the white part of the plate. There's not many of those guys out there that have success swinging at balls that aren't strikes. There are very few that can do that. So I think the quality of the at-bat, trying to pursue balls over the white part of the plate versus expanding the zone. And it's much easier said than done because we have some of the most explosive stuff in the game coming from pitchers that we've ever had before. I mean, we got these wipe out sliders and cutters and sweepers and fork balls and change ups. And man, it's a little bit of everything. It's a tough time. And look, where are we going on? 5 years now, we were throwing more off speed pitches in the game than we are fastballs. There's no such thing anymore. And it hadn't been that way in 3 years. There is no such thing as a fastball count anymore. No such thing. That doesn't happen. I mean, you can sit there and watch it every night and you go, okay, 3-1 count. Got to throw a strike here. Fastball's coming. Nope. Here comes a cutter. Here comes a slider. Here comes a curveball. And so you got to be able to hit everything now, and the only thing you can do is try to recognize the pitch out of the hand and then be able to attack a ball over the white part of the plate. I think that's where the Orioles have to be a little bit better. But I also felt like there was a lot of pressing going on, man. With the start the Orioles got off to last year, everybody was trying to make it up. And when you have a young core group playing from behind, trying to make it up. The pitching, was rough there for a while. It felt like there was a stretch early in the year last year. I felt like we started the game. It was 4-0 every game by the second inning. It felt like the Orioles were down 4-0. And all of a sudden the offense starts pressing. Well, I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to get us going. And it just snowballs, man. But that comes from experience. It comes from enough at bats, enough time in the big leagues to be able to go up there, slow your heartbeat down, relax, and understand I can only do what I can do. I can only control this at bat. I can only control the next pitch. If I'm a pitcher, I can only control the ball when it comes out of my hand. I can't control it anymore. I got to be able to control the at bat that's going on and focus on the things that I need to do. And so the one thing I will say, I do think what's so important for the Orioles in 2026 is getting off to a good start. I believe that, man. I think they got to flush what happened last year because it's going to be in the back of everybody's. I don't care what people say. These guys aren't robots, man. They are human. And you don't forget certain things. And while the struggles of last year, I think, will pay dividends down the road to this young core, it still would be in the back of their mind. And the best way that you can get rid of winning 75 games and going from a playoff team to being last place in the AL East is get off to a good start, flush all that stuff that happened last year. It's a new year and go from there. And so I think the month of April is going to be very important to the Baltimore Orioles.
Last question, and we'll get you out of here. How much of the development success for these young players in today's game comes from analytic versus coaching and feel?
I think it's a combination of both. I really do. I think in the world that we live in now, as a pitcher, from an analytical world, I got to understand from an analytical standpoint where my stuff plays and what is my best pitch and why. Okay. And when you can sit there and show guys spin rates and say, look, dude, the average big league curveball spins 2,500. You're spinning your curveball at 2,800 RPMs. That's well above average. That is an elite pitch. That's information that I like to have as a pitcher to say, hey, I got something back here that not many guys have. And I got to land this breaking ball for strikes. If I throw it for strikes, I know because of the spin rate, it's better than most other pitches. And so we got to have that perfect blend of that. And from an analytical world, too, with our hitters, we talk about backspinning the ball. But it's still a lot of the mechanical things. And it boils down to me of attacking balls over the white part of the plate. I can tell you all kind of stuff that you backspin it and you do this and your launch angle and this, that, and the other. I can tell you a million things. But the truth of it, it starts as attacking balls that are strikes and trying to lay off the balls that aren't strikes. Because as a pitcher, if I know that I can expand the zone on you, I'd be a fool to even throw you a strike, right? Why would I ever throw you a strike when I don't have to? But if you're going to, let's talk about some of the best hitters are in the game right now. Aaron Judges of the world, who hit 330 last year and did whatever. Aaron doesn't chase many balls. He makes you get the ball over the white part of the plate. And if the Oriole hitters can do that a little bit more successfully this year and get away from striking out, walking a little bit more, because I went back and tried to break down the whole season last year when it came to playoff teams. The number one indicator of a playoff team last year, it wasn't ERA, it wasn't strikeouts, it wasn't home runs, it wasn't batting average. The number one indicator was on base percentage. Mm-hmm. The teams that had the best on base percentage made the playoffs last year. Well, how do you get on base? Yeah, you got to hit for an average as well, but you got to be able to take your walks. You got to be able to make pitchers work a little bit. And so that was the number one indicator for getting to the playoffs, was your own base percentage as a team. And so I think the Orioles need to take a step forward. And again, it's hard to go back to 2025 and say this is what they were, because there were so many guys hurt last year. The Orioles, they weren't whole. I don't think the Orioles played one game last year with the offense they thought they were going to have when spring training begins. Because remember, Gunnar started the year on the IL, and then guys started to get hurt. Wesley got hurt early. Kowser broke his thumb the third game of the year. He was out. Gunnar comes back, but Wesley's out and Gunnar's out. And as the guys started to come back, others went out. And so they didn't play one game last year with the offense that we thought that they were going to have. And, we didn't even mention Tyler O'Neill. And Tyler O'Neill is a guy for me, too, it's hard to say we didn't mention him. He was a number one pickup last year, but he's also a guy, I think, if he can stay healthy and stay on the field, this dude, look, he had 31 homers, a couple of years ago, been a two-time Gold Glover out there. It's funny that we didn't even mention his name, which I think in some ways that's a good thing because it tells you what Mike Elias has done so far this offseason. But I do think that he could play a really big role this year if he's healthy. I know a lot of the fans in Baltimore are down on him, but I wouldn't get down on him just yet. I would give him a chance to get back to 2026, let him be healthy, and let's see what he can do in the outfield. Let's see what he can do at the plate as well.
Definitely. Well, I'm going to open this up for the floor to you here. If you have anything you want to plug for yourself, anything that you're working on or anything like that, go ahead and plug it away.
No, man, I ain't working on nothing. I'm just enjoying the off season. I've been keeping up with the Orioles and keeping up with Major League Baseball. Got a busy schedule coming, and I'll do ramped up. I'll do 100 games this year with the Orioles, which is the most I've ever done. Still going to be involved in the college game, and I'll do that again. So it'll be another busy year. But as far as my off season goes, man, I've just been kind of getting used to being at home and enjoying and getting to know my wife and my kids again. And been spending a lot of time in the woods, man. That's all I've been doing is hanging out here around the house and going up to the farm and doing a lot of hunting up there. And that's kind of what I'm going to do all the way through January. And then, but I mean, with everything that's going on and what I think is going to happen with the Orioles, I'm starting to get that itch to get back in the booth, man, because I think 2026 is going to be a fun year in Birdland. I really believe that.
Yeah. Somebody asked, did you get a chance to shoot flame?
Oh, they talking about that deer Pinch that I've been chasing, the one I call Pinch.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. No, look, he's smarter than I am right now. I'm a bow hunter. All I do is bow hunt, and I hadn't picked up a rifle in over 20 years now, and this deer is giving me fits. That's kind of what I like to do on my place because I'm a very competitive person, and I like to pick one big mature buck every year and just pursue him. And if I get him, I get him. If I don't, I'm just eating a tag sandwich. That's just the way it is,
Yeah.
And so far, he has not been daylight one time. I think this thing's half vampire because he only walks at night. But the season's not over yet. Like our rut is just starting to come in right now. The best hunting is right now. And we got the month of January too. And so he ain't out of the woods yet. And let's just say that I'm still after him. So I'm narrowing him down right now. And I've shot some does, just for deer meat because we eat a bunch of deer sausage and hamburgers and all that kind of stuff. So I've been target practicing on does, but I'm still waiting for old Pinch to make a mistake. But as of right now, he's kind of sticking his tongue out at me a little bit. Matter of fact, he walks by my camera and sticks his tongue out every now and then at nighttime. So.
That's funny. Well, look, we appreciate your time here. It was a great conversation, and I would love to have you back on again sometime.
Yeah, let's do it, man. I tell you what, I appreciate your support and everybody else's support in Baltimore and Birdland, man. And I'm looking forward to 2026 and appreciate the fans and can't wait, man. I just can't wait for baseball season.
Definitely. All right, we're going to wrap it up. And thanks to everybody who's watching tonight, and we'll catch you guys later. Peace.
Yep. Merry